Show. The Drew and Fuse Show. The Drew and Fuse Show. They clean up nicely. It's the Drew and Fuse Show. The Drew and Fuse Show. The Drew and Fuse Show. Yeah, they clean up nicely. Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Daft Punk's in the building. How's everybody doing today? What's up, Fusemania?
I'm doing today. That's what I'm doing today. It's a nice sunny day in Cincinnati, Ohio here, and that makes me happy.
I think we flip-flop because it's fucking raining here.
You've been getting a lot of rain in Southern California these days. What's up with that?
Yeah. What's up with that? I think it's they're calling it Seattle or the Hamptons.
Seattle.
Something like that.
Gotcha. Speaking of Seattle, there's this thing, and we have editors from Seattle on it. It's called Direct Music Service. And if you're watching the podcast and you're listening and you think, I've never tried Direct Music Service before, using the promo code Drew and Fuse Show will get you 30% off your first month of activation. So there you have it right there. What else do we got today? We've got Briggs beard oil that we push. If you use promo code DAFS, it will get you 20% off your entire order. Usually Drew will demonstrate how the beard oil works, but it looks like today he's all fresh out. So if you want to see how the beard oil works, just tune into one of our earlier podcasts and you can see Drew lather his face with luscious oils. Also, make sure you hit that YOLO line. We've got some call-ins that we might air here in a little bit. It is 562-246-YOLO. So you can call us. You can leave us a voicemail. You can do all that fun stuff. And Drew is also hinting to me that we have some lights that we are pushing by Both Lighting USA. We have an affiliate link in the description of the video below. It's not going to help you out any, but it does help the show if you're in the market for uplighting. They also have new tube lights that you can get on the site. Drew has been using them at his gigs, so make sure you check them out. If you order 16 or more lights, there is a discount that applies, but make sure you click the DAFS affiliate link below in the description for those.
Bothlightingusa.com/DAFS.
If you're in the market for Club Cannon, we do have an affiliate link for that as well. It'll get you $25 off your purchase of $250 or more. So make sure you check that out, clubcannon.com, if you are interested in turning your parties up to an 11. With that being said, we do have a great guest for you guys today. He has worked with clients such as Formula One, Ducati, Ferrari, Microsoft, ESPN, Lululemon, the Grammys, and more. He has shared the stage with artists such as Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire, Drake, Bruno Mars, Marshmello, and Chromeo. His versatility has helped him land some pretty unique opportunities, including being the first resident DJ on the Emmy Award-winning KTLA Morning Show in Los Angeles, a feature on The Ellen Show, and the opportunity to play himself in the blockbuster hit film The Fast and the Furious 7. You can have any Corona, or you can have any beer you want as long as it's a Corona. I believe that's how it goes.
Now he's family because he's part of the family.
Please help us welcome DJ Hapa.
Hey, man! Thanks for the intro. Intro. And yes, family is family, always.
Did you get? You need one of those drops from
Vin Diesel.
Yeah, from Vin Diesel. You need a Vin Diesel drop of Hapa's in the family now.
I do need that. I messed up. I don't know if that ship has sailed. Maybe there's a way. We'll put that out into the universe. We'll see. They'll keep doing these Fast and Furious movies, by the way, for until we have until we're in the ground, probably. You know.
There's probably some AI that you can search that at some point through one of the 1,000 movies that they've made. It says Hapa and he is part of the family, right? You can splice it together somehow.
Stitch that together. Editing magic.
That's pretty cool opportunity, though. How did that come about?
Man, I I'm sure we'll talk a lot about a lot of things today, but like probably a through line in my entire career is just continuing to build a network, continuing to put one foot in front of the next. I didn't have any preset, like, okay, one day I want to be in a movie, a blockbuster film, and play myself. Like that was never a goal. But yeah, I mean, I actually had the good fortune of playing for quite a few of the like release parties and after parties and premieres and things like that for the Fast and Furious franchise prior to 7 coming about. And then, yeah, we got the call like, hey, we've got a part for you in the upcoming movie. And I was like, what? Like, I'm not an actor, like this is. And so, yeah, it was crazy. The whole experience was nuts, man, and truthfully, it was amazing. And to like do it again, I would do it over and over and over again. I mean, that might be a future career potentially. I mean, I don't have any skills. I can't play anything else other than a DJ. But then again, like, I mean, it's cool. I mean, AM was in Iron Man, and played himself in Iron Man. And so, there's definitely a market for that. And the more that, DJing becomes more mainstream, I'm sure there's going to be more parts for authentic DJs in films. And it's great, man. I get a residual check from that. It's great. It's awesome.
That's awesome. I need to go back and watch that. Now that's the one where Paul Walker.
That's one where he dies.
He dies in the middle of it. Okay. Were you? Did you get to meet him before?
I did not. I was in the. So if you go back and see the film, literally, like you cannot blink. Like you watch it from the very beginning. I'm in the opening scene, and it's race wars, and it's in the desert, and there's like a party going on in the desert with this drag race, and I'm the DJ playing myself, rocking Steve Aoki's Boneless record, and it's good, man. It's good. It's a good time, but it's so quick. Like if you blink, you'll miss it.
Did they let you pick that, or was it like they just implemented it later after they got clearance? Or
the track?
Yeah.
The track was already selected. Yeah, the track was already selected. They had already set the soundtrack, and the fact that it's, I've got a relationship with Steve as well, and the fact that like it's kind of cool. I'm not playing some like random song, or just like a track that didn't go anywhere. I mean, Boneless was a big record, and so it was cool to be able to like put those things together and to be able to do it live. Actually, one of the reasons why I wear the hat still to this day is because I was wearing a hat in that scene. And then my manager said to me, he's like, well, and he was kind of half joking, but he was like, well, I guess now you're just going to always have to wear a hat so people will recognize you. I was like, huh, interesting. And then it just kind of stuck.
Was that like a costuming thing where they provided you with that, or you had done that on your own?
No, yeah. Like I think I had brought, it was one of those things where they had a bunch of stuff for me, but they also were like, hey, bring whatever what you're comfortable in as well. And I mean, it was in the desert. It was freaking hot. It was like 100 degrees or whatever plus, and I had brought some stuff, and the hat was actually mine that I brought, but not with the intent. I wasn't thinking like, okay, this is what I'm going to wear for this scene at all. And it just ended up being a thing, man. There you have it. That's the origin of the hat.
That's awesome. It's amazing. It fits you so well, and it is a staple. Anytime I can spot you in a crowd instantly, like we're at NAMM, and I'm like, oh, there's Hapa. Let me go say what's up. So
yeah, I like the fact that it's the Hapa, the hat. They both start with H too. It's like, oh, it's a thing. It's cool. Like it works, and I feel like I can age gracefully with this hat. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like something wild that is a trend and I wouldn't be able to rock later on,
we have a bunch of questions we want to ask you, and
go for it.
Before we get moving, I'm going to play this segment video. We're going to talk a little bit about music, so I'm going to roll this video and then we'll talk.
Hey, Drew and Fuse, Kermit the Frog here. When I'm not dealing with my pain in the ass wife, Miss Piggy, I like to talk and sing with my friends. What's your top songs? A new personal favorite of mine is this. It's the Drew and Fuse Show, the Drew and Fuse Show, and they clean up nicely, because usually they look like shit. Yay!
All right.
Love it.
There's Kermit getting us into our music segment. So one of the things we always like to ask is, do you have a favorite remixer or producer?
I've got a lot of them, and probably right now I've been really into Purple Disco Machine for a while. I've been also into, I mean, to me, still one of the greats is Avicii, in my opinion. And I feel like almost every single record, I can't find a bad Avicii record on my side. Like, I feel like everything that he did, including all the remixes, were just spot on. So, yeah, I mean, that would be my go to for sure.
Love
Yeah,
both of those.
totally agree. Yep.
The next question we have is, if you had a theme song and it followed you everywhere you went, like when you went into the grocery store, it played, what would it be?
Oh gosh, man, that's a tough one. Just because I'm thinking about the Avicii thing, like Levels is still to me like an anthemic one. I would love to just have Levels playing everywhere I walk, and then actually adding in the ASAP. I'm on a new level. Like that would be awesome.
Oh, damn. All right. I'm feeling it.
Do you listen to music on your own? And if so, is there anything like in your free time? Are you listening to a lot of new music or anything still? What are you currently listening to?
Yeah, I think free time is always such an interesting thing. I'm expecting my fourth kid coming up here. I've got
Yeah.
essentially like four different careers that I'm managing. Like free time is definitely subjective, but I would say that like I've tried to make time, and I try to make more time, especially these days, for just being able to listen to music, and just to be able to get back to the enjoyment of just the whole reason why most of us got into DJing in the first place was just this like love for music. So right now I've just been on this like disco house like tip, and like the playlists I've been listening to have been like disco house stuff. Like Diplo's last album was really dope, and like got into a bunch of the tracks on there, like the one that he has with Tisha. Coco and Breezy is on like rotation for me too. So yeah, man, just like a little bit, I'd say like 124 BPM stuff is sort of where I'm usually like my go-to for like listening.
So you say disco house playlists. Are you referring to like something on Spotify? Is it like a already pre-made
Yeah.
one, or okay?
Yeah, I'll flip-flop between them, and then I do that whole thing. I mean, to me, I come from the era like you guys where, digging for music and going layers deeper and like who played on this record or what does this sound like? And I think the modern day version of that is, finding a song that you like, switching that into the song radio, sort of seeing how that comes up, finding this, finding that, and then being just all over the place. Which, by the way, I don't know if anybody knows this already. I don't know if the two of you guys know about this, but there's a website that I stumbled upon through, I don't know, through a night of digging somehow, and ended up on this site called everynoise.com. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh my gosh. This will I apologize in advance for anybody because you will now spend so much time on this website. These guys have basically mapped every genre that they could think of into this like scatter plot thing. And then they've built Spotify playlists for all of these genres as well. So if you ever
Oh my
feel like,
God.
oh, I think I know a lot about music, or like, oh, well, there's no good music out there. If like you ever feel like that, go to everynoise.com, close your eyes and pick a genre, man. And it will open up your mind to just like, here's Nigerian punk postmodern. Like it'd be like some crazy stuff that's there.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Okay, that's definitely bookmarked moving forward. There is another playlist, another one that I know is called Playlist Miner, and it basically you type in a song or whatever, and it'll pull up every playlist that song's in, and it shows
Wow.
how many times it trends on it, and that's all through Spotify. So it mines Spotify. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty dope too. Love that.
We do this thing where we call Serato Top 5, where we talk about the top 5 most played songs in your Serato. I don't know if you have Serato handy. All right.
Let me go get my laptop. Hold on. See how embarrassing this will be for my Serato.
It's always interesting that we've noticed a flaw in it where people are putting play count numbers in the play count to like get their tracks shown. Because it's something that people are looking at now. How many plays have you played something? So sometimes if you see like a crazy number in something, that's because it was added. Or Drew noticed, didn't you say that mixed in key adds
Yeah,
number
mixing
there.
key adds a number in there. So if it has
Mixing
nothing,
key adds
it'll
a
just
lot of things.
oh yeah, mixing key with their cue points that make no sense.
They're whack cue points. I know. So I I obviously teach, and or for those that don't know, I teach and have been teaching for quite some time, almost 20 years now. But a big part of my teaching and a big part of my curriculum is, for students and DJs to really break the music down and become students of music and try to identify the different song sections and how long is the chorus, how long is the drop, how long is the intro in terms of bars, and like using the hot cues to sort of determine where those sections are. And so it's a big part of that, and I refer to it as like mapping your songs out. And it's a lot of work, obviously, and it takes a lot of time to do that. And I'll always have some student that'll come up in the middle of a class or something and just be like, "Hey, so I found out that mixed in key will set hot cues." I'm like, "Go for it," but they're not going to help you. Like they're gonna be so random the way that they'll be set that it's not really going to help you any. Yeah.
Or high energy. I don't even understand what some of this stuff means, right?
Right. Yeah, you got to develop. And actually, for anybody who's a newer DJ or thinking about getting into DJing or whatever that's out there, want some tips when it comes to DJing, I think that is the one that literally unlocked mixing for me at another level, was starting to understand song structure and starting to understand the arrangement of songs, breaking those songs down, figuring out those pieces. Like, it just made me such a better mixing DJ. And then also helped me get into production and edits and remixing, because you're doing a lot of that work already and you're looking at music from a structural point of view as opposed to just a consumer. And that's a huge step to go from, I like this song and I think this song could work for this crowd, to then like, I like this song, I think this song could work for this crowd, and I know how to get in and out of this song. Like, those are two completely different stances.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember it was super early in my career, and someone came up and they're like, it'd be beneficial if you mixed in key. And I'm like, I'm playing hip hop. It doesn't matter. I'm playing so fast. I'm not even paying attention. They're like, yeah, but other people notice. And
Right.
When I started noticing it really poignantly was recording my own sets and going, I let that one ride and it's so out of key, and you're letting the two ride on top of each other. And so I do pay attention to that a lot if I'm going to ride something. And I guess now with stems, you don't have to worry about it, right? You just hit the drums, and then now you got a flat drum out of it.
Yeah. Or you have to pay more attention to it. I think it's good. It's either way, it goes hand in hand. I think it's, forcing the technology is forcing us to learn more about music and to be able to really ultimately like using your ears to discern whether or not this sounds good or not. Because I say that a lot to people. It's like, I found that when I started mixing, harmonic mixing, I thought it was like this great advancement in my own mixing as well. And to some degree it was, but I've definitely been there where I let what the program was telling me shy away from playing a song that my gut was telling me to play, simply because they weren't in a compatible key. And so I do see other DJs doing that as well, where like, you can't let this thing dull your killer instinct, or like your DJ instinct of like what will work, because just because it's not compatible doesn't mean that, number one, it's right, because it's also imperfect. And then number two, you might have had a better idea to go here, and even though they weren't compatible key wise, like, you made it work. Or maybe it was a section where it just worked well. It was like a percussion break or whatever.
Yeah. No, I if you really look at Serato's keying structure versus Mix Emergency, like you said, it's not perfect. Like, they're all giving different things out. Even mixing live, I just try and just go with my gut always. And then if I'm gonna really ride something, I'll pay attention to it. Or we make a lot of bootlegs, just paying attention to it for that.
I got my top 5 here if you guys want to know what it is.
Which
I'm actually surprised. I'm actually really surprised by this.
Let's go.
Number one is a song that I don't know if many people actually know. It's called Something Good by the Lost Kings. Dope, like 108 BPM track, really good, feel good vibe to it. And that's number one. And then number 2 is I have a group called Feeling Good, PHILN Good. And we did a bunch of remixes sort of pre-pandemic, and like had a lot of great momentum. And We sort of lost some momentum on that project right before the pandemic. But we did a record with this guy named Palacios, who actually wrote, he's written a lot of the hits for Don Omar. And he put out an original version of a song of his called Imagino, and we did a remix of that. It's like 103 beats per minute. So that's my number 2 song, which is ironic. I think it's also because I teach off that song quite a bit. And then number 3 and number 4 are scratch tracks, like actual scratch sentence that I made for number 3, and then number 4 is just a skipless off fresh like that I have. And then number
Classic.
5 is a song called Walking by 88 Rising that features Sway Lee and Jackson Wang on it and Joji. So yeah, I was actually really surprised by this. I would have never guessed that any of these songs would be in there. Maybe the scratch tracks, but yeah.
And the other ones, would you guess maybe it's some of the movie stuff you do? It's premieres and you're just doing vibe style stuff that they have such high numbers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my sets these days, a lot of my performance sets are more vibe sets, or like, you know, I do a lot of corporate work. I do a lot of I'm fortunate enough to be able to say yes to what I want to say yes to these days. And most of it is not like, I haven't done a club in quite some time. To me, I feel like, yeah, a lot of the stuff that I do is a bit more like I play at Soho House, you know, like I play at like beach vibes, day parties and things like that. So a lot of this, like, I guess from that perspective does make sense. And also probably the fact that this is a laptop, you know, you're not getting the full picture. This is probably, you know, whatever this was over the last 3 or 4 years is what's in this Serato.
Totally.
I'm also the guy that has a bunch of different laptops, has like had laptops die on me mid-set, the whole thing. Yeah, I could give you horror story. Like we could have an entire other podcast on all of the times technology has failed me. Yeah.
Well, we do have a crazy DJ story, so maybe save that for that section of the podcast.
Okay.
Any honorable mentions? Any other tracks you want to throw out there that you said you produce a lot of producing too, so we could talk about that here in a little bit, but any just stuff that you think people should pay attention to?
Yeah, so I'm going to shout out a friend right now. So I don't know if you've had her on your show. Have you had Bella Fiasco on the show?
No, not yet. No.
You got to get her on. So maybe this is a bridge to be able to make that happen. But Bella put out an edit of the Craig David 7 Days track that's just banging.
Okay.
Like it's great. And so yeah, I'm gonna give that an honorable mention. That's probably like looks like that's maybe like number 12 or 13 on my most play. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So shout out to Bella Fiasco and actually Select Start, who both collaborated on this edit of Craig David 7 Days, which, I mean, you guys remember Craig David? Like,
oh yeah, I went to the club and I went to the club and I was
that's exactly how it sounds.
me and my boy used to joke about that all the time. We'd be like, I went to the In-N-Out and I got a burger and I went and got a deep fried. It was we would always sing it Craig David style.
He definitely has a, like, I mean, it's amazing. That record still holds up today. You know, there's certain records that still like can sort of hold their own.
Yeah, I think Tiesto redid it, or someone did like a deep house version of that. That's somewhat popular right now. I don't know off the top, but
that's the wave right now, right? I mean, all the 90s stuff getting redone, 90s, early 2000s stuff getting redone. Yeah.
To pitch it down and slow it down, and there it is. And if you pitch down 7 days, it's still super fast, right? It's still him. It's still him rapping like a crazy man.
One of the things we wanted to ask you a little bit about was your DJ school and how kind of that got started.
Yeah, so I mean, my journey into DJ education has been like just a crazy one, and so somewhat unexpected. So, you know, really, let's see. I'm trying to think of how far I want to go back here on this. I mean, essentially, you know, my professional career in the DJ industry, you know, certainly obviously started with me as a DJ, but like as an executive or like somebody in the space, it started with me going to college with Quickie from DJ City, and like we were roommates at some point, and I was helping to launch that, and the connection even to DMS. Like I was distributing all of those records. Like I became the distributor, the global distributor for Fat Wax, Crate Savers, reruns, like all of that stuff that Kevin Scott was putting out. And so, yeah, man, I then that happened, and we got a record store in LA called Rehab Projects. We started this record store, and it was really meant to be a physical version of what DJ City offered, essentially, and also a warehouse. And that was in West LA. And we were sitting around one day, and we were doing events and things like that outside of just selling records. But then the guys were all sitting around one day and like, hey, we need to do something in this space for the community. It's like, yeah. Let's start a DJ school. Yeah. Let's start a DJ school. And then about 30 seconds later, it was like, wait a second. How do you, like, where do you even start? Like, we're all self-taught. Like, what do you do? Just stick a bunch of turntables in a room and be like, hey, practice, have fun. We're here if you need anything, And then through the process, I mean, I really got to like give, Kevin a shout out here. A big part of my job of when I was distributing records, Kevin and Quickie and the entire team was just like, I'm literally in between classes, cold calling record stores, trying to sell them Fat Wax. That was my gig, was doing that. I remember hearing about Jam Master Jay starting Scratch DJ Academy in New York, like just several months prior. And so I'm like, hey guys, like, what if we call these guys? Because they've already started a school. They're like, yeah, call them. And so I cold call Scratch, and essentially, long story short, I ended up bringing Scratch from New York to LA several months later, and we opened up Scratch DJ Academy Los Angeles. And then from there, things continued to evolve. And, I ran Scratch for about 15 years. It was a huge part of my life, huge part of my career. And I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was just, I learned so much just about everything. I learned so much about DJing through teaching other people to DJ, really close with just where all of this comes from, why I'm doing this, what my purpose is. Like all of those things got unlocked during that time frame. So big shout out to Scratch DJ Academy. We built multiple locations throughout the country. Scratch is still around. I left Scratch in 2019 just to be able to conquer some new things. Ended up becoming a professor at a college out here in Southern California. I'm helping to build an audio arts degree program, which students can actually earn an AA and get a background in music production, audio engineering, and DJ performance, all inside of a community college that's super like well supported and well funded. Every student has a MacBook Air that they get in that program. This is at a community college. Every student gets a SB3, which now is being upgraded to a Flex 4. Yeah, I mean, it's
do they have like a tuition they got to throw in to get that, or that's just part of?
No, I mean, it's a community college, so I mean, like literally, these students are paying like I don't even know what the cost is. It's like what is that?
They got to give it back at the end of the day.
Yeah, they need to give it back at the end. They're borrowing it, like they're borrowing the equipment. But the fact that you have access to this as you're learning these skills is huge. And so, anyways, like I'm like working on that stuff right now. Like we're building that program out. And then sort of, one of my main things is I run a company called The DJ Coach. People started calling me the DJ Coach and just kind of stuck, much like the hat. And it was, I was teaching a lot of athletes, like private lessons and things like that. And that's sort of where the coaching reference, I think, came in. And I started to think about it a little bit more and just like, yeah, I identify with that a lot more than, professor or teacher, because ultimately I can't do it for you. I can lay it out for you. I can be there by your side, but I'm also going to push you. And that's a big part of what I'm going to do. So, the DJ Coach was born like right in the middle of the pandemic. The DJ Coach was born to be an online resource, essentially.
I want to interject just a little bit. I'm curious how you create a curriculum or for DJing. I mean, I couldn't even begin to wrap my head around it. I've had, people in the past ask me like, how do you teach me how to DJ? And it's like, well, come carry my records for a year and I'll see if I got time after that. Right.
I'll see if I like you. Yeah.
But you're just like, you've somehow created this thing to where people can actually learn. So I'm curious how that, kind of, you built that. And I'm sure some of it was pulled from the, maybe Jam Master Jay's school or the Scratch Academy, but how you made it.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I got really interested in the process of how can we teach anybody to DJ? Like, I really got into this whole space of almost like challenging myself. Like, can I teach a 75-year-old person how to DJ? Can I teach, like, somebody who's 7 years old how to DJ? Like, and how can I distill this information down to be the most simple it possibly can be? And to be honest, man, I mean, that's been a huge part of the overall journey, is like refining that curriculum over and over and over again. Like, I write curriculum pretty much every day. Like, every day I'm rewriting curriculum to some degree. I'm tweaking things. I'm like, so it started with a bit of a basis of, okay, this is maybe what would be what you teach first. But even at scratch, like, we were teaching people on vinyl records, like back in the day, and like, that's where we
Right.
started. And, in that moment of even like the transition with digital and all that happening was in the middle of my career at Scratch DJ Academy, and figuring out, like, how do we incorporate Serato? Like, some people feel like this is cheating. Some people feel like this isn't real DJing. Like, where do we sit in this whole thing? And like, man, I mean, today I will tell you this, is that, like, we have programs right now that we're running at schools. My goal, a big part of my goal, like with the DJ coach, and we have another program called Start to DJ. And we're going into schools from, LA to New York to Bali, like literally building like after school programs and in school programs to teach kids how to DJ. And
This is your
it's phenomenal.
personal school
Yeah.
that's doing this? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So it's great, man. I think we've got it down to a science. And I think when it comes to it, it's really just about being able to reverse engineer it. So you're like, okay, all the curriculum I write is project based. And so there's now a new term that's sort of floating around the education space called project based learning. And really all it leads up to is, here's the project. And then how do we get there? Like, what do we need? Like, what are we doing week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4? What are we doing to be able to get closer to finalizing that project? And, in our case, it's a first mix that you're putting together. And all the while, you're learning these fundamentals that will help you complete this project and get up in front of your peers and play 4 or 5 records for your peers.
Yeah. Do you teach them song structure at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that like one of the earlier? Yeah. And
it depends on the audience, to be honest. It's like, I think another huge part of just the overall success when it comes to education is you got to meet people where they're at. I just came from a meeting just now with a school that specializes in neurodivergent kids. So that, a lot of the kids have autism, or they have some sort of trauma that they're dealing with. And it's a small school, 68 students. And that's high school and middle school, super small school. But like, the way that we would run a program there is going to be different than the way that we run a program at the college, and is different than the way that we run the program at an elementary school with, kids that don't necessarily have special needs. And so, you find a way to really meet kids where they're at, or people where they're at. And that also, a huge part of that is, we're really blessed that we have access to amazing software today. We've got so many different solutions for DJing. It's not about going out and buying a pair of Technique 1200s and a bunch of records and a Vestax mixer and off you go, right? Like, I was giving a demo earlier today in the boardroom with this school on my iPad using Algorithm DJ, and had them remixing Get Lucky. Like, had like the CEO of the school, of the nonprofit, like remixing Get Lucky on the iPad, like right then and there in like 2 minutes, So
yeah.
To me, I think it's really about that. And then really drawing them in. And then, to me, the thing that I'm probably most proud of, honestly, is I am very conscious about not just teaching the skills of DJing, because you could learn that anywhere. But the thing I'm most proud of is teaching the culture behind DJing, and like the why we do some of these things. So Cool Herc always comes up in my sessions, like guys like Grandmaster Theodore, who invented the scratch in his bedroom by accident, like he comes up, Frankie Knuckles comes up, like all these people that played such an integral part in like where we are today, down to like guys like DJ AM, you know, like bringing his name up and, you know, bringing up some of these guys that I think like it's really important to share these stories because it's a huge part of why we're here.
Yeah, I agree. Not letting that culture and all that stuff get lost on open format mixing, or just, you know, finding and digging and finding the breaks in records and all that stuff.
Yep.
It is true. I was hearing we had someone else on in the JD a while ago. He also teaches, and how kids, you know, barely know what an MP3 is anymore. So how are you how are you basically navigating that? You using Beat Source and getting all them going with that part of it?
Yeah, I think again, it's just sort of meeting people where they're at, you know, different people. Like I have such a wide spectrum of people that we serve that it's, you know, we do have those people who are like, I'm a stockbroker and I want to come home at the end of the day and just kind of mess around on this XDJ XZ that I have that I bought. And I have my old iTunes collection of all the stuff that like I was partying to 20 years ago and I'm trying to relive that. And so, you know, that's different for that person. Like they're bringing in obviously in their own music. Other people are super excited to be able to bring in streaming services, like you mentioned, with like Beatport, BeatSource, Tidal, SoundCloud. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Tidal. I think Tidal is amazing, and I think the sound that comes out of Tidal when you're streaming is incredible. And then there's other benefits though to some of the other streaming platforms, and there's not necessarily this one, you know, way these days. And then of course, like I mean, still today, you know, if you're gonna be a professional DJ today, you need to still download MP3s, like hands down. Like you cannot just purely rely on streaming. So, you know, it just depends on where people are at and like what their goals are. I have some high school kids right now that are starting to book gigs at their local high schools, which is a part of the vision. And they're, you know, they're realizing how important record pools are because they need to go out and actually have the MP3s, because when they're in the middle of that football field, the Wi-Fi is acting up and they don't have the records, you know, and they're caught with their pants down, you know. So like all of these things I think are super important, like when it comes to figuring out how you navigate today. And, you know, I think most of us have multiple sources that we go to for music these days.
We always, you know, push, you know, that everybody should be using more than one record pool and more sources of music, just because everything offers something different, and at the end of the day, the music is the most important part of what we're doing. And I think people forget that a lot of times, that the music is the most important part.
Yeah, and that, you know, I think it's also that like we are here to serve you as a DJ. Shout out to my boy Malski, who's the DJ for the Rams. It's one of the things he does. But we were on a panel together, and he said this, and I like feel like this is so thoughtful. Is like we are servants, like we literally are there to serve. And like, you know, I think like we can't take that for granted. And in some cases that means that, you know, we're calling all the shots and we're pulling all the strings and we're giving that total freedom. In other cases that means that we've got to sort of juggle and balance and sort of figure that out. And ultimately, yeah, like the music is what we're using to be able to serve. And I think it's like, yes, the music is absolutely like there's nothing like the controller doesn't do anything. These things won't make any noise and produce any music without the actual music themselves, unlike a guitar or whatever, right? But at the same time, we also have to realize that it's important. Like the music, if we all had the same tracks, like we're all going to play it differently. You know, it's all going to come through us. Like what actually the audience experiences is going to be completely different listening to Fuse versus listening to Drew versus listening to me. And it could be off the same crate. And so I think it's also important for DJs to not have this like scarcity mentality as well when it comes to like, oh, well, I can't, if that guy gets on, then, you know, like we're this like crabs in a bucket mentality. And I for one, like in the past, I'm happy to admit this. I'm a little bit ashamed to admit this, but like, you know, in the past, I think that's what we were sort of taught to some degree. It's like this scarcity of like, there's one gig and somebody gets it and a bunch of people don't get it. And so you're sort of fighting for your space. And in reality, the same could be said with music. Was like, I feel like at some point we were like, oh, well, these are my edits and these are my things that I have. And this is what makes me special. And the reality is I could play one of your edits and it would be different than if you were to play it, you know, and it's all good.
1,000%. We've, I mean, both of us have made a career out of just making edits and giving them to other people, you know. I think the more you share, the better. don't think I've ever heard someone who I've given away packs to that all of a sudden it is me, you know. So it never happened.
Right.
Like you're saying,
Right.
we all have
Yeah.
different tastes of what we like.
One of the things we wanted to ask you about too is, you know, in your DJ bio, you talk about how you were diagnosed with epilepsy in
Yeah.
high school and how that's kind of affected you as a DJ and your career.
I wouldn't be DJing if I didn't have epilepsy, like plain and simple. Like, and I know that sounds like really weird to say and to like, it's a weird statement, but epilepsy, for those that don't know, is a seizure disorder. And so, you know, there's so many different types of epilepsy. I actually would have grand mal seizures. I was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 17. So like really kind of right after I started messing around with DJing, because I wasn't really doing gigs or anything like yet, but I was collecting records and had like the whole DJ in a box. I think I started on the Gemini DJ in a box is where like
I had that.
yeah. Oh my gosh. With the belt drive turntables. Yeah. I think I was getting ready to graduate from high school and had just been accepted to UCLA on a full academic scholarship. So was over the moon to be able to like leave San Francisco and come to LA. And then all of a sudden like this hits me and like flips my world completely upside down. Anyways, to sort of make a condensed version of the story, I end up going to LA despite my neurologist telling me that somebody with my condition at the state of my condition should actually rethink college altogether. I told him to go F himself, being 17 and just like having that sort of outlook on life, and ended up going to LA anyways. And it was just a really, really rough road. The first 2 years school were just really tough. Just for anybody that has no context. I mean, you might have some context in terms of like what you see in movies or TV shows when somebody has a seizure, but there's so many different types of seizures. And the most obvious one is that like, you know, you start convulsing, you fall to the ground, you lose control of your entire mind and body and everything. And you're basically unconscious while this is happening. And then you sort of come to. Those are the type of seizures that I would have, but I would only have them at night. So I was actually, in some ways, this was like a good and bad thing. Like I was scared to sleep because I knew I was kind of putting myself at risk by sleeping. But on the other end, like I knew that sleep deprivation also added stress to my mind and body, which actually would trigger the seizure too. And like, there were just all sorts of things like triggers. I mean, seizures generally are triggered by, you know, the sort of the big categories like stress, lack of sleep, like inconsistent diet, you know, essentially the college experience, you know, drugs, like all of those things like contribute to like putting yourself at risk for a seizure. And like you defining the college experience right there, you know? So it was tough, man. And, you know, to make a long story short, I mean, I saw the bright white lights. I almost died twice. It was just a really, really rough road. And
while you were in LA, that happened?
While I was in LA, while I was at school in LA, while we were working on DJ City, while I was distributing Kevin's records, like all those things were kind of happening somewhat around the same time. And it was tough. Like it was super tough to navigate, and was able to get to the other side of it. Found a really great neurologist at UCLA. By the way, if anybody's facing any sort of condition out there, not just epilepsy, but anything, like I can't urge you enough to get a second opinion. I got a second opinion. The second opinion was this doctor at UCLA. She saved my life, turned my life around. Her name, ironically, and this is not why my name is Hapa, but her name is Dr. Hop, Hopp. She lives, she's now in, actually, I think she was in Cincinnati for a little bit, but she's now in like, I think the Boston area, and like runs the neurology department at like a major university there. But anyways, I can't encourage it enough, man. She saw me as more than a patient. She saw me as more than just a number. Was able to help me figure out like what would be the right mix of medication and also lifestyle changes to like try things and to try to get this to work. And yeah, I mean, between Dr. Hop and the grace of God, like I've, you know, made it through and was able to really live a pretty awesome life. To date, I think it's 15 years seizure free.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And and I'm on no medication right now, which is also a bit of a, like, it's a miracle. It's literally a miracle. Like people in the epilepsy community are just like floored when I tell them that, where it's just like this, no seizures, no medication. And this is like my life. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how does this push you and propel you into DJing? To
Yeah,
tie
yeah,
it
yeah.
in.
That's yeah, right. Because you're just like, wait, what? I don't understand.
No,
Yeah,
no, it
no, it's
makes no sense, man.
no, I know you understand, but I was just like, yeah, I think, to me, I've got a tattoo that's here. I've got a bunch of them, but I've got one here that says life's too short. And it really, I think when you're facing certain challenges in your life, and for, everybody, it's something different, so you might not have epilepsy, you might have something else. Maybe you're dealing with depression or anxiety or some sort of, addiction that you're dealing with, or, a divorce you're going through, or just whatever it is that you're dealing with. These things are put in front of us for us to overcome these challenges. And I just want to encourage somebody who's listening to this to get to the other side of it. I mean, literally, I was at a state where, I mean, it's a really low state. I mean, I contemplated suicide in the middle of all of that. And, to be able to like get to the other side of it, it really did teach me that life is too short to just like take anything for granted, to be able to, I know it sounds cliche, or to like not pursue the things that you love, that you're interested in. And my DJ career, I think, is a reflection of that. And not just my DJ career, but my overall professional career as a whole is a reflection of that. I really
Yeah.
am here to make every moment count, like every day, every moment of every day count. And I'm like, there's nowhere else I'd honestly rather be than to be here with you guys right now. And I make a conscious decision with everything that I say yes to really weigh out, like, is this something I want to be doing? Is this something that I think could be something? And then I say yes to it, or say no to it, or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that's helped me tremendously in my career.
Words to live by, and I think you're already answering one of our later questions, but it basically makes you live your dreams and start pushing further on this. And then just to go into your career, this is during college you start living that life of going further down the DJing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like DJing really gave me something. DJing, and also sort of the businesses connected to DJing, really gave me something to pour into. And I think it really gave me, in those moments at that time in my life, it was something that I like absolutely needed to be able to like actually focus on something where I could see results, that I would be around people that, I felt I respected, and that like, we were working towards similar goals. And I think to get around people like that, like that's a huge part of it as well. Like there could be somebody out there that's battling something right now, and you just feel completely isolated. And that's how I felt when like the diagnosis came in, and just like that whole part. I didn't know, I never even had heard of the word. And let alone knew anybody that had epilepsy. And even throughout college, I never knew anybody that had epilepsy. It
Yeah.
wasn't until I became an advocate for epilepsy that all of a sudden people started coming out of the woodwork, like being like, hey, I'm so glad that you're talking about this. I actually have seizures. I can't tell you that I have more students that have epilepsy or have some connection to epilepsy than I ever would have imagined, and
Right.
to me, that's amazing to be able to see that. And again, I know we're talking about something kind of specific, but it's also much broader than that. It's like everybody's got something, that you're
Oh
dealing
yeah.
with. And, I think we really need to get to a level where we're able to see each other on this human level, as opposed to, based on the condition that you have. Because everybody's got something, man. Everybody.
Facts for
Totally.
sure.
One of the things we like to ask, and from something not so serious to something a little more lighthearted, is you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier on that you had some crazy DJ stories.
Oh,
We always
yeah.
like to ask, it could be from a night gone great, amazing story in the booth, or a night gone wrong. We love hearing both. So if you have any for
Man,
us.
I try to not tell this story too much, because like I don't want to overtell the story, but it's like it's hard to not, because the story is just like, I mean, there's number one, and then there's everything else, And so yeah, the story I'll give you guys, I was on KTLA. So you read that in my bio, but I was that was a crazy how I got there too. But was basically DJing every morning on the morning news. So think of your local news station in your area, like the premier one or whatever that everybody watches and is super loyal to. And now you have me DJing in and out of breaks the same way
Wow.
Paul Schaefer would be for David Letterman or whatever, the Roots for Jimmy Fallon, right? And that came out of like a half like side comment to the executive producer of the news. I went on the news to teach one of the anchors how to DJ when we were launching Scratch, and I taught one of the anchors how to DJ a little bit. We did a little thing on air. And then I sort of said out of the side, like it was kind of half joking, but was like, man, like you should have me back. And not like, you should have me DJ. Like I just should be DJing.
You always got to
like,
throw that out. You always got to throw that out.
You have to, what is that? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right. Like, so I'm like, exactly. Yeah, why not? And he was like, you know what? That's a great idea. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. He's like, actually, we have sweeps next week. Could you be here all week next week? I was like, yeah, of course we can. Like, of course I can. So anyways, I'm DJing on the news.
Do they let you pick any songs you want?
Yeah. Full creative freedom. And then I started curating a lot of the other music that was in like anything sort of musical. Like I started to kind of get my hands into. And it was like the number one station. It was like, I don't know, so many, like 200 million homes or something like that KTLA morning news went into. And so it was wild, but it was also, I had a little bit of training before that. I was like hosting some shows on other networks and things like smaller things. But anyways, I'm here on the morning news, and on the morning news, you actually get exposed to all sorts of people, right? Because you have like grandmas watching this show, and like I'd be walking through the grocery store and have like a 60-year-old woman stop me and want to like take a picture with me. And at the time I'm just like a club DJ, right? And so I'm like, what? Like, how do you, this is crazy. But some of the people that had also pulled out were just like random opportunities, because now I'm like in a bit of the light, and people are like, oh, I need a DJ. Like, oh, I see this guy on the news. Like, we should call him and see if he'd be down to DJ. And so it'd be like random requests that would come through. And I got this request that came through. It ended up being a thing. He's talking about, I'm going to produce an event at the LA Coliseum. I'm like, dope. That's crazy. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do this sporting event. This is before mixed martial arts got really popular in the States. And so this is sort of this predates a bit of like UFC becoming popular. And so like this guy's like producing this fight, this like, battle royale or whatever at the Coliseum. And he's like, I'm going to fill up the Coliseum, 90,000 people or whatever. Right. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I guess so. I'm literally at this point, guys, like I'm on the morning show every morning. So I'm up at 4 a.m. every morning. And then I'm also still running Scratch. I'm also still DJing 4 nights a week.
You're an alien, bro. How many clones do you have?
I'm just like, do it. Like, I don't know how I got through that time frame, right? And so at this point, I'm literally living like day to day. I can only focus on what needs to happen the next day, right? So that's sort of my in terms of the prep for this gig, there was no prep for this gig because I was just like, when it comes, it's gonna come, and then I'm gonna get ready for it. A huge mistake, but. Anyways, we go into the Coliseum. He then tells me, we're also broadcasting this to Showtime. And I'm like, oh, cool. Wow. Okay. So you're broadcasting to millions of homes. All right. Got it. Cool. He's like, and actually we secured the broadcast rights to China. So this is going to air on CCTV or whatever in China.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the, like, how many billions of people are going to then see this? Okay. All right, cool. And so he has positioned me on the Coliseum steps. It is like the way that the LA Coliseum is built. It's built like a Roman Coliseum. It's meant to like emulate that. And so there's the ring is in the middle, right down on the field. They've also got seating on the field, and they're filling up the stadium. So it's actually, even without it packed, it would be over 100,000 people like in that, because they were using up seats on the infield. So he's got me on a delay or whatever on comms. And then I'm also like playing live. He's like, I want you to play tracks as the fighters are coming out, and I'm going to put them on chariots, and they're going to come out and then come into the ring. So, I remember, one of the songs that was big at the time was like T.I. Bring 'Em Out, right? Was like a big song at the time. And like, I was still, I think it was maybe earlier days of Serato. And so, like whatever. I'm like, all right, I got this. I can do this. Like I'm doing all this stuff on live TV. I can do this. And then he's also like, look, I also he made the reference of like and one basketball, where like they would have like a host who was kind of like talking crap, like as the players are playing. So he was like, and I kind of want that too. So every now and then I'm gonna have you get on the mic and just kind of say some stuff, like liven up the crowd. I'm like, okay, cool. All right, can do that. So anyways, we're in the middle of a fight somehow. One of the matches, I don't even remember who was fighting. One guy pins the other guy down. Half the crowd starts cheering that the dude is getting pinned down. I get a relay message back up to me that's like, Hapa, and it actually came through my assistant out at the time, who I don't know if you guys know DJ Prince, but shout out to DJ Prince, who is he's my old intern turned assistant, that's my homie, man. So he was with me that night, and he gets the relay message, tells me, he's like, hey, they're saying that you got to get on the mic and get the rest of the crowd engaged. Instantly I will never forget what I said. I said, tell them how you really feel. That's all I said. I opened up the mic and said, tell them how you really feel. Half the crowd starts booing, half the crowd starts cheering. Like everybody's engaged. I did my job. Somebody wins, somebody loses. I am the scapegoat. I start hearing "fuck the DJ" chants coming, and I'm like, "Is this what they're actually saying?" And I'm like, and I look over to Paul. I'm like, "Paul, is this what they're actually saying? Fuck the DJ." Fuck the DJ. Yeah. Bro, I felt like digging a hole to China in that moment. Like literally, like I was like, okay, and this is mid-gig. Like this isn't at the end of the gig. This is like mid-gig. And so man, that was like such a moment, a sobering moment for sure, of just like, okay, how do I learn from this? Like, what do I extract from this? I mean, look, the gig ended up fine at the end of it. I had people coming up to me being like, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like having a DJ included in this whole fight thing was awesome. And then I had people message me. I think this was still MySpace days, if I'm not mistaken. I was like having people message me being like, if I ever see you in a Walmart parking lot, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, just horrible.
Crazy.
And
just
so
because you said, tell them how you really feel. That's it. That's what made them so lit.
Sensitive. MMA fans, super sensitive, just something to keep in mind. And it was wild, man. And I took off to Miami just to be able to like get out of it. Cause I was in a crazy headspace. I was rethinking everything. I'm like, dang, like, I'm not here DJing. I'm not trying to get killed or like get into fights, like DJing. Like, that's not why I'm doing this, and I really had to like reevaluate everything. And that put me into a space where I was just like, okay, let's take stock. Let's take inventory of everything that I'm doing. And at that moment, man, I also realized like I was running too hard, like on all the stuff I was doing.
Hard.
Like I wasn't able to really properly prepare for things. I was like really just taking things for granted. And, it taught me a whole bunch. And so, I mean, honestly, there's obviously a silver lining to the story. And I mean, it was honestly one of the most memorable gigs I've ever played, if not the most memorable. And it's just,
you gotta have that footage somewhere.
oh my gosh, somebody probably has that footage somewhere. I don't have that footage, but it's been this many years later. I think I'd be okay watching it back. But like I mean, it was just wild, man. It really made me reevaluate so many things. Also, including, I was on this trajectory where I wanted to be famous. Like I really did. Like there was a part of me that was like really itching to be known by everybody. Like I want to be, I want to have this like celebrity type of name. And that was kind of around the time too, where like celebrity DJs started to kind of pop up, like that term started to kind of pop up. I think a lot of this was also a reminder that like, that's not what I want. Like, I don't actually want that. And I give it up, man, Kanye to anybody who's like under the super, super duper microscope. Like I got a taste of it, and it was just a taste. And it was like, nope, that's not what I want. Like it's hard to live that life. And so I think it's, it was one of those experiences, man, where you just start to really realize what matters, what you're really trying to do, what your purpose is, like what you should be putting your energy into. And crazy story. I don't know how many people have had that.
I want to say how impressed I am with how out of the box your DJ career has been. I mean, TV show to school to just, I mean, it's just such a different path, and it shows how many real options there are for people in this community to go out there and get. It's not all just club DJ, wedding DJ, right? There's millions and millions of different opportunities.
Yeah.
you mentioned something about the laptop dying. I don't know if that was a terrible one too, but I don't know if you want to mention you said something about a laptop dying mid gig.
Yeah, I mean, I've had almost everything you could possibly imagine happen to me, and I think, to be honest with you, I think this is also God's way of exposing me to all of these situations so that it would arm me to be able to be in the position that I'm in now in teaching a lot of this stuff. Because I'll be honest, if I was like, just a club DJ, and no knock to somebody who's like, quote unquote, just a club DJ, but there'd be some limit to like the experience that I'd be able to share with somebody, or like the ability to not connect with this whole other group of people that maybe is not about nightlife, and then the same with like technology. I was somebody, we used to own a record store. I used to distribute vinyl records. I was a diehard, like, I will never use a laptop. Like, I was that guy. I said those words. And I've become such the opposite. I really pride myself on trying to stay at the cutting edge of technology. At some point, I was fighting it. And then I was just like, all right, fine. Let this thing swing all the way to the other side. So I'm the guy who's like testing out new stuff always. And because of that, like, I tend to live in this like beta world to some degree. So I'm always testing out a new version of the software or a different laptop, or, I have a long-standing relationship with Microsoft and have done stuff. I'm right now, the computer that I'm using that's connected up here is actually like the big Surface Studio computer that looks like a giant iMac that like comes and folds down in front of you, and it like sits at basically a 20-degree angle, and you can DJ off of it. And I've performed off of it multiple times and toured with it with Microsoft, like using that. But like, because of that, I live on that like edge of that. So I have stories for days where like technology fails you. But yeah, I mean, I was doing specifically with the laptop. The one laptop that I had in mind when I said that was I had, my old trusty MacBook Pro. We were getting ready to shoot this major live class that I flew all the way to Seattle. I flew up to Seattle. We met with these people. We did this whole shoot. Actually, some people, you may have seen this because I've done it still lives online. It was through Creative Live, which was actually known for photography classes and things like that. But then we did a deal with them when I was at Scratch to do DJ classes through them. And so I did this live. I did like 3 days of live teaching in Seattle, and a lot of wedding DJs have seen this because I did like an entire wedding seminar around it. But if you look closely at the laptop, it's not my laptop. It's actually another DJ friend's laptop, because we're getting ready to shoot this thing. And we've sound checked everything. Everything is fine. And then it's like, all right, here we go. 30 seconds to go in live. Boom. For whatever reason, completely died. Like, motherboard died. Like, not just battery ran out. Like, motherboard crashed, died. Like, the thing wouldn't even boot. Like, it was done. And so I'm like, and we're live. And I'm over here like literally tap dancing live. Well, like, I have my buddy who was my assistant at the time. He's like pulling up his laptop. I'm like, yo, give me your, like, I need your laptop. I'm like, we're doing all that. So, yeah, right before. And usually that's how I know I'm doing something that I'm supposed to be doing, is there's some sort of tech failure, like right before.
That's a terrible
thing
to look forward to.
It is. But it also is like, it helps me get into the mindset of like, okay, something's going to go wrong, and something like might go wrong, but I'm going to be able to handle it, and I'm going to be able to like navigate between it. I mean, even for you guys, like, we had to push this back a little bit because my timing ran over on something else. And it was like, I hate pushing things back. I hate like rescheduling things, but it's like, I knew that there would be something that would maybe like come in the way of this happening. And so, yeah, hopefully that's it though. Hopefully nothing else happens. Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful it was only an hour pushback and there's nothing else. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
One of the other things we wanted to ask you about was DJing with Michael Jackson and how that went.
That was, I don't even really remember how that came about, like what the origin of that was, but so there's
did you get to actually meet him?
Yeah, I did. and it was wild because I mean I'm a big Michael Jackson fan. Still
Was he
to this
like,
day.
"Hi, nice to meet you"? Was he all like soft spoken, Michael?
Yeah, he was. No, he had like a baritone voice. Yeah, no, he was.
Hey,
He
this
was.
is Michael.
He was awesome. Like he was just like you could feel this aura around him. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. And there's definitely other people I've met in my career, in my life, that have had that type of like presence. Stevie Wonder being another one, where there's just like this greatness that's around them that sort of permeates like the atmosphere around them, like as they're like walking into a space. It's just wild. Like you can feel it. And I don't know if that's also a combination of like everybody else's energy who's like excited as well. But like it's awesome. And yeah, I did get a chance to meet him. He wasn't a shaking hands guy, but he definitely was like, I will acknowledge you. I'll give you sort of a head nod, had sunglasses on. And it was still mind blowing, like how that came about. I was asked to DJ. I think this might have actually come from Macy. So I was doing a bunch of work with Macy Gray for a while, and she would like run in like random crazy circles. And one of them, I'm pretty sure that's how it came about. And it was Christian Audigier, who was like the creator of Ed Hardy and Von
Oh, yeah.
Dutch. And it
Yeah.
was his birthday at the Peterson Museum in LA. And
Macy
they had
Gray
invited.
and the Von Dutch guy is that's, you say random, and that's definitely random.
Yeah, it's like this. It was weird. Like, and Snoop was there, and like there were like a bunch of people that were there, and it was just this random mix of folks. And they asked me to DJ for this thing, and sort of open up and play the in-betweens. And there were going to be some speeches and some presentations and this and that, and possibly some performances. And I didn't know that MJ was going to perform. Like, I didn't know. Like, I think if I knew, I might have like gotten freaked out by it. Like I think that would have actually been a bad thing. But I don't know if it was a last minute call or what happened, but he shows up to this birthday, and I guess they were friends, and he shows up and like impromptu performs. And yeah, it was freaking wild. And like, I don't know, man, it was just like that whole night is just a blur, because there were other things that then like random people that were there, and just like, where am I right now? And I've had a couple of those moments, and a lot of them actually do center around Macy, which is kind of crazy. There's another one in France that was just wild too. That was like, where am I? How am I here? Like, this is crazy.
Well, it's probably lucky you didn't know, because then something bad could have happened, and nothing bad happened.
Oh
And
yeah,
then the
well for sure.
crazy-
Like my laptop would have died.
And then the crazy thing is, Snoop and Michael are in the back smoking a joint or something. What a wild night.
Yeah, it was wild. It was wild. It's one of those, like, when you tell people something like that, it sounds so Hollywood and it sounds so like LA. And it is. I mean, that is the benefit of, being in LA, is like there are those types of things that will happen, where it just seems like it's just completely unbelievable, but is stuff that actually goes down.
One of the things too we wanted to ask you about a little bit is we know you do a couple podcasts as well. You have a tribe called Dad. Can you just describe those for us real quick?
Yeah, man. So I think I briefly mentioned this, but I am a dad of soon to be 4 kids. My son is coming in a matter of weeks here. So I love being a dad, and it's something that I didn't necessarily know that I wanted. At some point in time, my wife and I had agreed that we would just be the cool aunt and uncle and that we would live our lifestyle and sort of travel the world and do all of that. And maybe kids weren't in our future. And then she gives me a lot of crap for this, because I then put a footnote on it that was like, or whatever God wants. And then now we have 4 kids. And so, yeah, it's been a great journey. And what I realized through this process was my wife ended up hosting a mom show, and I helped produce a radio show for her and her partner that we aired on Dash Radio, and they turned into a podcast, and it was great. And they brought in guest guest moms and mompreneurs and like experts and all this stuff. And invariably they would like look over to me and be like, what do dads think? And I'm just like, you want me to represent all dads in the world like right now? And it's like, all right, well, I'll tell you what I think. And that turned into them wanting to give me like a dad segment as a part of their show. And then it was like, you should start a dad podcast. And shout out to Spider, but Spider and I had been talking about that for a while. And he and I actually, our oldest kids are very close in age. And so he was kind of going through the dad journey around the same time I was. And we'd always kind of compare notes. And we always thought it would be funny to like, yeah, let's start a dad podcast. Yeah, let's do that. And then one day we were just like, all right, let's really do this. And so we started a tribe called Dad. It's great. I think, it's continuing to morph and evolve. Like our whole purpose for the podcast is to be able to, not necessarily just make light of fatherhood, because I think there's a ton of people that are out there that do that way better, that are comedians that talk about fatherhood. I could never, do it to that degree. But more so just to be able to give community and tools and resources and to really talk about real things when it comes to this, because for a lot of us that are dads, this is the most important job that we have, and yet there's no rule book. There's no, there's not a lot of resources that are out there for dads, especially dads from our industry. So yeah, it's great. And I want to continue to like just put great content out there for dads that want to learn more about what they could be doing differently and how they could be expanding what it is that they do. And I think a big part of this too is for a lot of us, we might not have gotten passed down fatherly advice from our own fathers. And so to be able to get dad advice, like my oldest daughter will be 10 this year, to be able to get advice from another dad that has an 11 and 12-year-old girl, like that actually would be way more valuable to me than getting advice from my own dad about fatherhood, because it's like so much has changed, right? So yeah, like we really pride ourselves on being able to do that and to be able to like put dads into communities with like group by life stage and to start to group the content that way.
I 100% agree. I would definitely get more from my friends that are sharing the same experiences than my dad. It was different world back then.
Totally different world. Couldn't be more different, I mean, literally it's a completely different experience.
One of the things that we like to do before we wrap up is we do the segment called The Sauce, and we have a little video that will air here. And the sauce is just a final takeaway, something you might tell your younger self, something you might do a little different, any plans for the future. So we'll roll this video and then we'll discuss that.
The name is Bootsy, baby. And this shout out goes out to Drew and Fuse, all the way from Cincinnati to the LBC Bobbles. Yeah, I was told you guys are quite the chefs, and you got a delicious sauce that you cooked up. Ooh, and it drips that swagoo and breaks down the recipe. Yeah, and you giving up the pig, cause it's funky. As in good, that is, finger funkin' good. On the one by the power of the one. Yeah, without that, there is none. So get yours and be in tune with the one that loves you. Get it, baby.
Get it, baby.
Get it.
All right. There's Bootsy.
I have a secret sauce in my life for sure. And, I think, when it comes to sauce, the first thing that comes to mind is balance, like overall. And, like you've got to be able to find the right balance of all these different ingredients to be able to make something that's actually palatable and like that, tastes good and whatnot. And so to me, I'm constantly reevaluating the balance of those things. And, I've got a lot of things that I'm passionate about. I've got a lot of things that I feel like I'm pretty good at. And, it's tough. It's tough to be able to find all of the time to be able to make all of that happen. And so, there is this constant balancing act, like finding good people that you can have around you. And in fact, this is probably a part of the advice I would give is, and I can't remember, I think this might've been James Clear who I got this from, or somebody that he got it from, which is, everybody needs 3 people in their lives, at least these 3 people. You need a mentor, so somebody that you can actually learn from. You need a mentee, so somebody that you can actually pour into and sort of share like some of the learnings that you have and can help them in their journey. And then you need a friend. You need somebody that, like, no matter what, through thick and thin, will be by your side, will be able to, be that shoulder to cry on. That isn't necessarily one of the other two. That's not a mentor and a mentee. And I think to be able to find those 3 people within your world, I think is really, really helpful. And yeah, to me, I think like that kind of encompasses a lot of it.
Great
That's
advice.
Good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You got me thinking about people in my life. So those good 3 people to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, and obviously you can have, three mentors, 3 mentees, 10 friends or whatever it is. But like to try to think about like where people fit into those particular categories. And there's a lot of people that, you may feel like, I mean, what do I have to share? And you'd be really surprised. I mean, that kind of goes back to that whole A Tribe Called Dad thing, like the person who even fumbled through fatherhood and wasn't there for their kids during their, preteen years or whatnot. Like there's something you can share though. Like there's something you can share with somebody else so that they don't make those same mistakes, or there's something that you can certainly learn from other people as well. And like it's just, we have so much to be able to offer to one another. And that's what I really truly appreciate about the DJ industry as a whole. Is I feel like, yeah, on some level, many of us do, quote unquote compete to some degree. And you could choose to look at it that way, but I think it's much better to choose to look at it as a community of folks that are like-minded and that want to see each other win for the most part, and I think like it's just meant so much to be a part of this industry, and it's something that I think is super important to pass on to the next generation, to make sure that that part doesn't die, that part doesn't die with our generation, and that in this sort of space where you have kids growing up in COVID so isolated, that like community becomes something that sometimes people think they don't need. It's super necessary to be able to achieve all the things that you want to do, is to have a community and a network of people. And so yeah, I wouldn't be here without you guys.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate you taking the time to come here and chat with us today.
My pleasure, man.
Yeah,
all pleasure's all mine.
It's great that you're giving back to the community. I think it's something that is so needed, and make sure that we do hold this culture, that where it all came from, and people need to know the beginnings, and it's not just about a 15-second TikTok reel or what song you find, but it is a lot deeper. As long as we hold that too, it could really become a career to where people aren't like, hey, like we went through. It's a career of, hey, I want to be a DJ. Well, you can do that now, versus the way we came up is you can't do that. There's no money in that. You got to do something else, right? It's everyone talking down to you. So with you giving back and like showing how much of a journey that we all had to get to this point, and be able to explain it, I think is so invaluable. Really
I feel
awesome.
like if I can share one more thing, I think like this is something that I'm just being reminded of that I should probably share with you guys on your show is I'm starting a new program. So we have this Start to DJ program that's going into schools. And what I've started to learn is that there's quite a few DJs that are out there, or people that, appreciate DJ culture that are out there, that maybe want to give back, that want to be in that classroom, but they don't have this experience of like what I've gone through, and they don't know how to write curriculum, or they just don't want to have to go down that road. We're actually creating a situation where we're creating certified coaches to go into their local communities and to be able to execute the curriculum. So we actually have this whole thing baked, and the literally, like, you do not have to have the pressure of being the head coach or being the teacher in the classroom. Like, we've got all of these things already built. We've got a workbook that goes along with this that like is super tangible and easy for people to digest, kids of all ages, to be able to like, there's a word search in it. There's like fill in the blanks. There's all this like this imagery that's in there. And so literally we are, I'm wanting to find a way to be able to like help fuel that passion that somebody out there might have for wanting to teach, but doesn't know how to actually get there, doesn't know how they could actually go about doing this. And that might be at your local Boys and Girls Club. That might be at your church. That might be at like your kid's school or somebody's, after school program. And you haven't said yes to that opportunity because you don't have all these tools. We're putting this together as a package and giving you all the tools.
That's
Awesome.
incredible. You're a wealth of knowledge. Where can people find you and maybe ask you questions and be able to find? I mean, it sounds like there's about 20 websites you can give us, but where can they at least start so they know?
Yeah,
where
I
to
think
go?
probably the headquarters for everything. You can always hit me up on my website, Hapa World, HAPAworld.com. You can always hit me up on social media as well. All of it is consistent at DJ Hapa HAPA. So DJ HAPA, six characters. And yeah, just reach out. I'm really interested in connecting with people that are out there. I feel like in this season of my life, like this is a huge part of my purpose. So, if you've got what maybe even seems like a dumb question, or you're just a super beginner, a super newbie DJ, or you haven't even gotten equipment yet, you just happen to stumble across this podcast, like reach out. Like I'm happy to point you in the right direction. I'm happy to like come alongside you and figure out how we can get you going. Or if you need career advice or whatever it might be, you need dad advice, whatever, I'm here for it all.
Awesome.
Hey,
well,
I want to compliment you because we're leading up to 100, and very rarely do people actually have their own websites. And I wanted to compliment you on that. You actually have a website, and with all this stuff, you're very put together, and very impressed. So definitely.
Well, I will say this though, man, Drew, is I think that like I got comments a couple of months ago, I got comments from somebody in the industry that I do disagree with. And I'm going to say this like on your guys' show, which is that like somebody commented on the fact that because in my curriculum, I teach people how to make their own website. And I believe that it's important to have your own website. It's your piece of real estate in the digital world that is yours, that nobody can touch. And that's your piece of land in the digital landscape. And somebody told me that like that was outdated. I don't think so at all. And I stand by this. I think instead of sending somebody to a YouTube link, instead of sending them to SoundCloud or Instagram or some like here today, gone tomorrow place, create your own website. And there are more tools now than ever to be able to do this. I could help you create a website in 30 minutes. So like there's no reason why you can't actually have your own piece of the digital world.
I'm going to agree with you that everyone needs a website. It pisses me off because me and Fuse try and do any research on this, and we'll go down the SoundCloud, YouTube, like 800 links to find anything about somebody. And, you need to have a centralized location, even if it's just to point me to where those other 800 links are. You 100%. Should have a website, even if it's just your picture and a bio.
It just goes back to that whole like dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And you have to project out there what you want. And having a website is a very easy way of doing that. And, I think you should have one too. And, at the very least, like what we do with this podcast is we have one of those solo 2 links, and the Drew and Fuse show links to that. And then that links you to all of our other links. I mean, even something as simple as a splash page with your bio or a splash page with your links is to get to everything, I think is important. But
and owning your name, owning your name and having that somewhere that's like, this is me, this is my name,
Totally. Well, we just want to say once again, thank you for coming on the show with us today. We really, really appreciate it. If you guys aren't following him, make sure you go and follow him at DJ Hapa on Instagram. Like you said, you can find all of his links there. And we appreciate everybody that's been listening and took the time to tune in today. So until next time, we'll talk to you later. See you guys.
Peace.